All right, we're going to get started with today's presentation. I'd like to welcome everyone to our September Well session. For September, we focused on suicide prevention, awareness, and resources, including how we can support someone who is experiencing a mental health struggle. We hosted our first ever employee mental health first aid course here at the city, and we had 12 of our staff, city employees, that earned the mental health first aid certification, which is wonderful. Nationally, suicide is the second leading cause of death for those 10 through 44, with New Hampshire having approximately 35% higher rate than national ranking. So that's a bit concerning. Back from the 2020 New Hampshire Suicide Prevention Plan, it stated that one person died by suicide every 31 hours in New Hampshire. So that, again, was another statistic that was a bit staggering from that report. Suicide clearly presents a significant and growing public health concern, especially among our first responders, military, and veterans, those with substance use, and mental health issues as well. Today we have Amy Cook from NAMI here joining us. Welcome, Amy. Amy is with the organization in the role of training director. The National Alliance of Mental Health is often referred to as NAMI, and that's a grassroots mental health organization working to improve the quality of life for all by providing support, education, and advocacy for people affected by mental illness and suicide. So today, Amy's going to walk us through NAMI's programs, and we'll turn it over to Amy. Thank you.
And so you said you're recording, so I should use the microphone, yes? Yeah, okay. All right. Just making sure. So thank you, Christy, for having me here, and ladies for being my audience. So I have a bunch of things that I want to let you know about NAMI New Hampshire. Originally in 1978, Peggy Straw, she from New Hampshire. It all started at her kitchen table. She had a daughter who was experiencing mental illness, and she worked at the Community Mental Health Center. So she was in the field already, and around mid-70s, she went to a conference and heard that other people, other parents in other states were experiencing some of the same caregiving responsibilities and challenges that she was, and getting her daughter the help that she really needed. And she heard that they were thinking of starting an alliance. So she got involved and she convinced New Hampshire to be part of the NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. So she really started our New Hampshire chapter. And so it started all about families, for families, with families, which is wonderful. We have a Peggy Straw conference room named after her. So we often talk about her a lot because of the impact that she had. So it's a grassroots organization, like Christy said, and you saw Peggy Straw. So it's really about support, education, and advocacy. Those are our three pillars. And we offer a lot of different services to families, to professionals around New Hampshire. So this handout, and I can send any of the handouts you see clips of that are up there. If you think that they're ones that you think would be great for staff, let me know because I can send them. So 221,000 adults in New Hampshire are affected by illness. 1 in 3 report having had depression or anxiety since COVID. So we often tell people that we're talking to, you're not alone. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are experiencing exactly what you're experiencing or what a family member might be experiencing. Almost 57% of Granite Staters ages 12 to 17 who have depression did not receive any care in the past year. So it tells us in the field of mental health that we have a lot to do still in terms of making sure that services are accessible to everybody. So hope starts with you as professionals, especially in that public health field, right? You experience the same thing that we do a lot. And even city employees, like in terms of being employed by the city, you're always, I'm assuming that you're always running into people who are experiencing some sort of crisis, whether that's a mental health crisis or a housing crisis, economic crisis, that can certainly add to their mental health. So these are our three pillars: support, educate, and advocate. We have an info and referral line that we also have Spanish speakers who answer as well. So the info and referral line, I wish that our info and referral staff could do all of these presentations because they know everything. They literally know everything. So we have people themselves who need services call the info and referral line, but we also have parents, we have teachers who aren't sure, what they can offer to families. HR people looking for services to offer to their employees. So the info and referral line is for absolutely anybody. You can find either what services are available, you can find out where you can get to support groups. They definitely know a little bit of everything. So that was a good transition into support groups. Support groups is one of the biggest things that NAMI New Hampshire does. We have support groups for the people who are affected by mental illness, so like a peer-to-peer support groups, but we also have a lot of family support groups. We have some things going on for kids. So if you have a family member experiencing a mental illness, you don't have to feel alone, right? So in those support groups, you're going to learn how to separate the person from the mental illness, but see what other people are doing, be with people who understand what you're going through. We have a survivors of suicide loss. We have many of those support groups around the entire state. Some of them even run virtually as well, so there's no transportation barrier. So there's a whole lot of different groups that you can tap into. I think one of the ones here in Nashua, is a virtual one, but they often invite other people from other parts of the state who can't get to like an in-person group. So just some things that people say about our support groups. The feedback that we get is absolutely, that they're impactful. The facilitators have lived experience themselves, so it's not just somebody who learned it in a textbook. We have moms facilitating, the parent groups, dads facilitating. We have people with mental illness facilitating those peer-to-peer groups. So they've lived it, they've walked it, and then they help other people thrive as well. We have a new program at NAMI New Hampshire that was just funded last year by the state of New Hampshire. And a lot of kids, you'll see a lot of statistics or hear a lot of media information about the number of children waiting in emergency departments for inpatient psychiatric care. And that is an incredibly challenging experience, in the personal sense, but it's also a coordination nightmare for parents to figure out, to navigate the system, figure out what application they have to fill out, how to keep on top of the doctors, the referrals. So we have a program where, again, lived experience, it's somebody who's lived through that experience, and that person helps as a navigator. So can go into the hospital, can talk on the phone, can be text messaging the family who's trying to get that kiddo through that emergency department and into inpatient care, or sometimes they end up going home and that doesn't end up being the plan. But it really provides them somebody who knows what the system is, knows what application they have to submit, knows how to talk the talk in terms of inpatient care, emergency department staff. So we've gotten some great feedback about that already, and it's only been in existence for, I think it's coming up on about a year, but it's fairly new. The New Hampshire Family Network is another aspect of NAMI New Hampshire. Again, just keeping families connected, keep giving them information, newsletter, family support activities, education. They get involved with some advocacy if they choose to. So it's just another way to make people feel connected and make them feel like they're not alone. At the end, one of the last slides at the end, there's our website. And so everything I show you, families that you're working with, individuals you're working with, staff, they can sign up on our website for like all these e-news and information, that kind of stuff. So Fast Forward is another really great program that we offer. This one does have an eligibility requirement. The others that I've talked about so far, like that support group, the only eligibility is that it's applicable to you, right? The Fast Forward one does have eligibility, so it goes through the Department of Health and Human Services. We have about 20 family support specialists who work as a wraparound. So they facilitate a wraparound team for the family. So this is really for kids who have families that have a child with some type of severe mental illness. So the families are doing double duty in terms of caretaking, in terms of coordinating, and making sure that their child is getting good care. So this wraparound service, the facilitator, they'll involve school, they'll involve doctors, they'll involve social workers, they'll involve whoever needs to be at that table to wrap around all the care that kiddo is getting. They set goals, they help the family work on some goals, and we've gotten life-changing has been some of the descriptions that we've had about this program in particular. So this is for young kids starting at 5 up until the age of 21. We also offer transitional housing support for adults, so kind of moving into some of the adult services that we have. It supports individuals who are in transitional housing, community residential programs provided by NFI North. So each of these programs offers a complement of clinical, medical, vocational, and residential options for men and women with mental health challenges. So the peer support specialists, again, they have lived experience, they've walked that walk, and they know that you can be successful, you can get on the other side of it. So they help reach some goals, obtain meaningful employment. They help that person get through the experience and get back into the community or get back home, whether that's home or an apartment. For educational programs, so this is our second pillar, is education. We offer a variety of opportunities for individuals, families, community members, but also organizations. So some of those community education opportunities, Side by Side is a series of programs for older adults or caretakers of older adults. In Our Own Voice, Life Interrupted, and Survivor Voices, down the bottom of that list, those are training programs for people who are interested in being public speakers. So In Our Own Voice is people with mental illness who've thrived in their life, who've thrived at work. So we help them craft their story in a way that they can share it with other people. Life Interrupted, again, is about people who've had a serious mental illness. So essentially their life was interrupted at one point, but then they've gotten it back on track. Survivor Voices is survivors of suicide loss, telling their story about their loved one, a family member, or somebody in their life who died by suicide, how they overcame that, the grief and healing process that they went through, and what supports they found. So it's all about hope for people to hear, because when people are in their darkest moments, sometimes it's hard to see that there's hope. So our speakers are really trained to share their story in a way that tells people that there is hope. Foundational and specialized workshops we can provide for any kind of community organization, depending on what their need is. Various topics. We have our Connect Suicide Prevention and Postvention trainings. So those, again, we bring out to organizations that are looking for more information on those two things. Youth leader training we do in schools, and stigma-free we do in the workplace for all various businesses, talking about just reducing stigma around mental health and helping them set a climate that supports mental health and wellness. For individuals, we have self-paced e-learning, workshops and trainings that we host that you can register for, sign up for, and attend. Most of them are virtual, but we do have some in-person ones. We have an annual conference that's free to attend as well. It's actually a 2-day conference. It's amazing what the team's been able to do virtually. You know, you always hear a virtual conference and you kind of, no. But they've put together an amazing conference that goes all day long into the night. I guess the good thing about virtual is you get to pick and choose which workshops you attend. So that's a great one, and it's free for anybody to sign up and attend. And it happens in March, so the registration will be open soon for that. And then we have education programs for families, for individuals. Again, if they need to learn about mental illness, maybe they have a loved one that has a mental illness, and they just need to really understand how to separate the person from the mental illness. And that are all free for individuals or families to attend. The bottom bullet there, the NAMI Basics, family to family, and peer to peer. Oh, there's our virtual conference. And more information about the family-to-family, peer-to-peer, and the basics. So they're held over a course of like 6 to 8 weeks. They're usually offered virtually, sometimes in person or hybrid, and free to participants. We also do, just an FYI so that you know, we also offer crisis intervention team program training to all of the law enforcement across New Hampshire. So all the police departments in New Hampshire have had several members of their staff. Dover Police Department, I believe, is the first police department to have all of their staff trained in CIT. So what CIT does is works with the law enforcement and first responders. We've had fire, EMS participate as well. So they understand how to work with someone in a mental health crisis. You know, they're not showing up, putting someone in handcuffs and throwing them into a car. You know, they really truly understand when they leave the CIT program. It's a 40-hour program, a full week, and we work with them. We have a lot of lived experience speakers who come in and explain what it was like when either they themselves had law enforcement contact or a loved one and their family did. So working with them to understand how do you relate to someone, you know, when you don't exactly know what they're experiencing, or maybe you haven't experienced it yourself, but how do you show compassion in what you're doing? And we also have 603 stories. So 603 Stories, there are stories on the web, but also a podcast, really just to reduce stigma around mental health and give people an idea that they're not alone. There's lots of people out there who are experiencing mental illness or mental health challenges. And we have on our website a form if you want to share your story. On the website, there's a form that you can fill out, share your story, and it'll be put up on 603 Stories. Advocacy is our third pillar. So we do a lot of education around advocacy. We do a lot of work around advocacy, and it's all to benefit people who have mental health challenges in New Hampshire. We do an annual State House tour. So each year it's free for anybody to sign up. So we have a lot of high school kids who are interested in kind of political stuff or interested in mental health come, but we've had families come. A lot of our volunteers will, or even those speakers that I talked about that we train to do public speaking. So they come, they learn about legislation, they learn about what it takes to advocate for mental health needs in New Hampshire. And we tap into our volunteers during that time as well. So it's something that our volunteers are so well suited to do. A lot of them have lived experience. They've gone through our In Your Own Voice trainings, and so we tap into them for advocacy as well. If they're willing, it's always an opt-in type of thing. Annual events. Our virtual conference I mentioned. This is my Brave. I'm going to show a picture of in a second. That's a theatrical production that we started a couple years ago. Magnify Voices as well, I have another slide to show you, is for kids to do expressive artwork. And NAMI Walks New Hampshire is actually taking place on Sunday, is our big annual fundraiser. So this is my Brave. We started 2 years ago. It takes place, the name's eluding me, at the big theater in Concord. Yes? Yes, 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 yes. Okay. See, I'm like, I knew in my head there. So it takes place there. We actually, it's an application process to be part of this theatrical. I say theatrical. It's not fictional. They're telling their stories, is what they're doing, but they're doing it on stage in a theater live, and we take applications. So there's only so many spots. And for months after we get the applications, we look through them, decide who, the point of This Is My Brave is really for public education. So we need stories that represent all types of people. We need stories that can show hope. And we need people to be able to tell their story in an effective way. So in that sense, it's a theatrical production, right? It's not just anyone signing up and everyone gets to go up there. So after we select the people who we think will meet the purpose of This Is My Brave, we worked with them for months. I mean, we have an actual director who directs it, works with them on presence, stage presence, public speaking, and some of them bring, there's one year we had, a comedian who did theirs in terms of a comedy. We have people who bring in humor, bring in their profession, do a lot of different ways of showing what it's like to live with a mental illness. So all of the people in This Is My Brave live with a mental illness, have found a way to thrive through that. And it's just an absolute amazing event. We do use it as a fundraiser as well for all the activities that we do during the year. And each year so far, we've done it for 2 years. This will be our 3rd year, and it's sold out. So we have sponsorships, different businesses sponsor it. We have like kind of an appetizers in the beginning and some networking. So it's a great event. If you ever, when you hear about it, buy a ticket and go, or send someone to apply to do it. So Magnify Voices is an expressive art contest for grades 5 through 12 in New Hampshire. And it can be painted art, it can be drawing, it can be art they created on a computer. There's audio, so people singing, songs, lyrics that they've written. The one down in the left-hand corner, the young woman with the black leotard on, she did a dance performance that she choreographed and also has like a poem that she read over it. Could be poetry. So literally any type of expressive art is welcome for submission. And they have a huge display of this artwork. And they give out, awards, People's Choice Awards, and other things like that. So a lot of different schools participate. You don't have to participate through your school. You can just submit your own there's more information on our website. It's really a great way. And then that Magnify Voices, we bring the artwork around. So it's been presented in libraries. So after each year, after all the submissions, we bring it around New Hampshire so people can learn what youth think about mental health and what they say and think it feels like to live with a mental illness if they do. It's so impactful. The students in New Hampshire are incredibly talented. So it's definitely an impactful initiative that we have. So this Sunday, the first Sunday in October, is our NAMI Walks, New Hampshire. Big fundraising event. Our goal this year is to raise over $250,000. It really supports all the work that I've told you about, all the, the free educational programs, the support groups. I mean, it really funds all of that work that we do. So we hold it in Concord every year. We sponsorships, individuals register, teams register, and some of the pictures there from what we've done before. So it's all around Concord, past the State House, and people either, do it in honor of somebody they've maybe lost to suicide or somebody that they know who struggled with a mental illness, or even they themselves. It's an absolutely amazing day. All of our staff volunteer during the day. So I don't go on the walk itself. I usually do the tents. I mean, we have a children's area. It's kind of like a big fair, kind of. So I always stay back and, help with the people who are on the field. And it's so much fun. It's such a positive event. And our volunteers. So this they're not a pillar. Our pillars are support, education, and advocacy, but I think of our volunteers as the foundation to all that. So our volunteers go across all of those three pillars, and we would not be successful without them by any means. We have over 200 active volunteers at any one given time, and people come and go. We use them for, I shared with you, we use them for speaking events. We incorporate them in our trainings. Like, for instance, when we do a suicide postvention training, we have a survivor of suicide loss who comes and shares their story so people understand what families go through when that happens. Do you know them? Oh, excellent. That's funny. Small world. Yes. They certainly, all of our volunteers, they certainly get out there, right? I mean, they help with the NAMI walks. They help with This Is My Brave. We're constantly tapping into volunteers. We get so many requests for resource tables at different fairs or conferences, but we only have about 60 full-time staff, and that includes everybody. It includes senior leadership. It includes the people who are doing, the family services. So we don't have the capacity to do all the resource tables that we get requests for. So we often have volunteers who are more than willing, especially if it's an area that they live in, they'll be like, yeah, we'll set up a resource table. So they are certainly the backbone of all of those pillars that I described. So you can get connected with NAMI New Hampshire on our website. You can sign up. We have two types of e-news. We have just sort of a general one that just tells you everything that's going on. And then we also have an advocacy-specific one that would give you information about what type of legislation's coming up that you might be interested in. So you can sign up for either of those on our website. And then we also have, people can access that info and referral line either by calling or by an email. So that information is there as well. And then, of course, we're on social media like everybody is. And on our YouTube channel, we have a bunch of trainings that we've put on there, or just speakers are on there as well. So if you're ever looking for something to share with someone, you could certainly browse through that as well. That's NAMI New Hampshire in a nutshell. Yeah.
What are your slides you had for this transitional housing support?
Oh, yes.
Nashua Youth Program for 2026.
I had, let me bring that slide back up so it's in front of me. Nope, not that one. There we go. That one there. So all of these are run, I don't have details on that one. I would have to get you more information. They're all run by NFI North, and so we have a contract with NFI North to put peer specialists into all of those transitional housing programs. So that's something that's here in Nashua. So I can definitely get you more information on that. Yeah, yep. Where it is, sort of what it's doing, that kind of stuff. Yep. Yeah, there's certainly, we're trying to definitely get more up in that North Country. If you look at that map, the poor North Country needs a few more supports up there. The Seacoast area and this area is where a lot of the supports in general, not just NAMI New Hampshire, but a lot of the supports in general are focused that we work with, or key partners we work with. So that Lakes region, is a big one that we're trying to infiltrate a little bit more, as well as the North Country. Just in terms of mental health services, that's where we're really lacking some services. Yeah. Any other questions? We do a lot. I would encourage you to, I certainly can't give details about everything. We'd be here all day, but go through our website. We have a really active Facebook page as well. We have some closed groups too. If you're working with families, or if you even have friends who are in need of it, we have some closed Facebook groups for families experiencing mental illness with a family member. We have a closed Facebook group that's monitored for kids. And so people can definitely get that peer-to-peer help through those Facebook groups if they're not going to in-person support groups. So the info and referral line can tap you into that and make sure that they get an invitation to it. But our Facebook page, our LinkedIn page, I'm not on Instagram, but I'm told our Instagram page as well. I mean, daily, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day, they're putting up just information for families. Yeah.
I'm very interested into the strategy related to arts and the voices expressive arts.
Yes, that is an amazing.
Right, is that a way to engage that population?
Yes.
So if the youth are interested in jumping into a project through schools or through an organization, community organization, or just simply making a group themselves,
Yep.
what do they need to do? Where to start? Who to connect?
Yep. So have them Google, or you Google, Magnify Voices NH, and it'll pop right up. It'll show you what their website is. So even though we support it, it has its own website. Yep. So on that website, you can see all the past submissions. You can scroll through. You can watch all the videos. I'm actually in the process of putting together a suicide prevention workshop that's using all of their artwork and the videos they produced and songs they produced, and it is amazing. So have them go on that website, and there's a page on there that gives them information on how to submit work, when to submit the application, all of that stuff. So yeah, even if their school doesn't even know about it, they can submit work as an individual, so they can get involved with it. And the events around it, I mean, it pulls families together, it gives kids, I mean, they're not just submitting artwork, they're kind of getting this whole community along with it, which is just absolutely amazing. Some of the winners have gone on. We had one of the heart work. She calls it, her name's Abby, who did that heart, and on the right-hand side. And so she won a couple years ago. That was the winning submission, and she calls it Heart Map. So if you were able to scroll in and see it, she has all of these different places of her heart that were affected by mental illness somehow. And so she actually came in September. We do a suicide prevention press conference with the governor's office, and she came one year as our speaker, and she had her artwork there, and she talked about just how she produced that artwork and her experience living with a mental illness. And she speaks about it openly. So part of her mental illness was also eating disorders. So she shares about her experience with that. And we have never had so much amazing feedback about a press conference. Everybody just absolutely loved hearing from this young woman, and it was so impactful. And then I think all the kids who are experiencing something like that, to hear her, see her standing in the executive council office of the State House talking about her own artwork, is just really inspiring. So yeah, please, share about Magnify Voices with any of the families that you work with, or families that you know personally, because it's an amazing program. And like I said, we take it on the road, so their artwork is going to be seen in libraries and schools and city halls. We set up all the artwork for people to go through and see all the submissions. So it's kind of a great thing for a young person, to be able to put on a resume, but just a self-esteem builder. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Question about, I don't know if it's too early to say it, but are there any legislative priorities that county has for the upcoming legislative session?
Yes. So we have a few legislative priorities. There's a few on. There's a lot of priorities that aren't sort of labeled as a mental health bill, but we just know that the impact of them, so some of them are funding. We know that it's going to trickle down. So funding is huge. We've been working on the goal of zero emergency department boarding. People who are in an emergency department just there, some of them are there for weeks or even months just waiting for inpatient beds. So we can't go back on that. We need to keep having mental health funded in New Hampshire to continue that work. We are looking at some bills that would affect lethal means. And so what I mean by that is for suicide prevention, we know that time and distance helps people who are having a mental health crisis. We don't want them to have lethal means right in front of them in the moment of their crisis. So there's some bills around that we want language. Again, it's not a lethal means bill, so it's not sort of in your face, but there's language in different bills that we just want to make sure that would, keep people safe, but also respect people with mental illness as well. And then there's some about what education kids are getting in schools around mental health is a big one. Several years ago, they passed a bill where teachers, school professionals, school personnel are all required to do 2 hours a year of suicide prevention training, which was really good. So we want to make sure that they keep that, but they also offer ways to fund that and make it accessible for teachers as well. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. We actually have a whole policy team at NAMI New Hampshire that is constantly talking to legislators over at the State House, reaching out to families, getting all of our community partners together to address some of this advocacy work. So if it's something that you're interested in or know someone who is, definitely sign up for that e-newsletter on policy stuff, because especially around the legislative session, they'll constantly come out with updates on what you can sign on to, support, not support virtually, or if they need people to speak about it. So they really just keep people informed, which is great. Yeah.
Here in Nashua, we have Nashua Mental Health, and they are the only ones, as far as I know, that advocate for the deaf and hard of hearing, and also offer the services for that population.
Yeah.
I just want to mention it because
Yeah.
I know NAMI does great work
Yeah.
with all the sectors, including language barriers in other languages.
Yeah.
So not keeping, that population out of the radar is
Yeah.
important for us in this region as well.
Yeah, Nashua is such a diverse city. And two things to let you know that we're doing in that realm. We worked with Greater Nashua Mental Health Center to create a suicide prevention training for the deaf and hard of hearing community. So we're almost towards the end of it. So our hope, our intention is to put it on our e-learning platform so people can, it has an ASL interpreter who's doing it, and the PowerPoint, the slides were really made to be accessible in terms of people with hearing and challenges. So the visual piece, right? So we really touched it up in terms of like the visual pieces that are there. And then we have the ASL interpreter who's doing that whole training as well. So that's gonna be, keep your ears out for that. That'll be coming out soon. And we also, just tomorrow actually, I'm doing a workshop for Waypoint, New Hampshire, around the cultural diversity, mental health awareness, suicide prevention, but how you incorporate, how you look at that through a cultural lens. So it came out of a training we did about a year ago with a company called Compass Connections, and they're in New Hampshire, but they're nationwide, and they work with unaccompanied minor refugee children from all over the world. So they came to us and said, we need to do a suicide prevention training, but it has to be really customized. So we dug in, we took on the challenge, and we're like, yes, like it needs to be really customized. You can't take just an off-the-shelf suicide prevention training, for their roles. So there were clinical people, there were social workers, case managers, working with kids who, just arrived and don't have a whole support system. And most of them don't yet speak English. So it was an interesting challenge to take on. So we've taken that, we did really well with that. And And so we turned it into a workshop that we can now do for all organizations around New Hampshire. And if tomorrow goes well, so we've tweaked it, we've worked on it, we've edited it. If tomorrow goes well, we're going to do it again in the spring as like kind of an individual sign up. Do it virtually and have people just sign up, so it's not just like an organization specific training. So we have a bunch of trainings that are on our website, on our training page, that you can sign up for, attend. Like I said, some of them are virtual, some of them are in person. Yeah, I know Nashua is such a diverse city. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that. It's some exciting work that we're taking on. Yeah, yeah.
There's a social work conference for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in February. I wonder if that training would be something y'all could present then.
Great minds think alike. So it was on my radar as we're sort of testing it out, tweaking it. My thought had been, probably I want to do it a few more times and get more feedback, tweak it a little bit more. And then my thought had been to look into that for not this upcoming conference, but the one, next year. We're doing another one that we just put together as well at the Behavioral Health Summit in December around National Guard families. So, how do you support, how do you build resilience in National Guard families? So either because they have kids and they're in schools, or because they're working, they're everywhere. So in New Hampshire, we don't have a big active military installation, right? It's like most of our military are National Guard or reservists. So they're everywhere, but we don't know it. So sometimes you don't even know that you're working with a military family, and they're experiencing some situations that are unique with either deployments or even a training. When you figure the separation a family experiences, it might only be 2 weeks of training. But when you have a 6-year-old and mom or dad's going away for 2 weeks, that's an impactful, time to gear up for that, the anxiety gearing up for that, the 2 weeks of the separation, and then getting probably another week or two to get back into a normal routine when they come home. So right there, you're talking 4 to 6 weeks for this kid. So what's the teacher seeing at school during that time? And she might not even know, or he might not even know, because it was just a training. Mom or dad just went to a training. But it's just that military experience that so many of our Granite Staters have, and because we don't have Fort Bliss, it's because we don't have a big military installation, we don't often think about that. So that's another area that we're kind of putting our feet into in terms of mental health, suicide prevention. How can we help in that area as well? Yeah.
Dramatic increase in just like calls to suicide hotlines for
Yes. Yeah.
how New Hampshire is addressing
Yeah. So let me start off by saying, just in general, not specifically LGBTQ+, but in general, something that I recently learned working at NAMI New Hampshire that kind of really struck me as important, and then I'm going to move into the point about LGBTQ+, is our info and referral line prior to 2021 used to serve about 20,000 outreaches. So whether that was a phone call, email, that kind of thing. So about 21,000 a month. Around 2021, so post-COVID, it turned into an average of 50,000 a month. So it went from 20,000 to about 50,000. So now every month since then, it's been an average of about 50,000 people reaching out for help, reaching out for resources. And our info and referral line is not a crisis line. It's not like 988, it's not 911. It's just info and referral information. So in terms of 988, what happened recently is press, I believe it was 7 for LGBTQ+, was taken off Trevor Project stepped in and said, we're going to open our lineup. So typically, they only work with kids up until the age of about 25. But we reached out to them. We actually had someone call and ask, not just emailing or whatever, to number one, test it out to see if it was going to work. And number two, to say, what can we tell 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds? Like, you technically only work with someone up until the age of 25. And they told us that they're not going to ask, they're not going to scan out, people who call. So we've been telling everyone, based on what Trevor Project told us, that if they want to call Trevor Project as an alternative, Trevor Project will answer calls, help whoever it is. They're not going to ask you, are you under the age of 25? Also in New Hampshire, I'm also the chair of the Suicide Prevention Council in New Hampshire, and so we work closely with the 988 Coalition in New Hampshire. So the 988 Coalition is making sure that our call centers for 988 have training on how to work with the LGBTQ plus population. They did in the beginning, when they first opened and we had a call center and 988 started, they were trained, they had the training, but we just know now that we have to bring it back and make sure that they have that refresher training, that they're prepared to step in. So we tell people the 988 caller is prepared to help you, but if you feel more comfortable calling the Trevor Project, then that certainly is they're stepping in to pick up, what 988 might not, if you're not comfortable calling 988. So NAMI New Hampshire, our role has really been to spread that information, to make sure that people understand where they can get help, that they have lots of options to get help, because what you feel comfortable doing might not be where I feel comfortable calling. So to make sure that there's lots of options for people. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. And we keep our eye really closely on legislation that affects that community as well, because a lot of the legislation will impact mental health, even if indirectly. Yep.
I asked about legislation because Public Health plans annual legislative breakfast in January. And thinking about what kind of priorities we want to lift up to our local elected officials.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely a way to make change. Yep. Yeah. Great questions. Thank you. I know. I think we could spend the afternoon together exchanging ideas and.
Thank you guys so much for attending today, and Amy for sharing all this wonderful information with us about NAMI and how we can get connected, which I think is the key here, how we as city employees and people of the Nashua community can get involved to help support those in our community that are struggling, or family, close friends, coworkers even. There's so many ways. All this, again, will be up on the website. It's been recorded. We'll add some of the additional paperwork. We'll scan that in, get that up that Amy's sharing today, so people will have access to that. And again, thank you for coming and wanting to learn this and empower yourself to be the difference in the community. I think that's key to wellness. So thank you. Thank you to Nashua TV for recording and being patient with us to get started today. Again, Amy, can't say thank you enough. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.